started. Good evening. I hope you are all doing well. Today we are learning Maseches Chullin Daf Tzadi Aleph. We do have a bit of work to get to where we need to, a bit of a thicker blot on the bottom of Tzadi Aleph Amud Aleph. Mir Hashem will get to the top of Tzadi Beis Amud Aleph. I will be out of town Sunday through Thursday, and I do not believe that I have a sub. Rabbi Handler, unfortunately, is not available. So you may be on your own, but I will keep you posted to see if I can possibly find somebody else. We are starting at the two dots toward the bottom of Tzadi Amud Beis. We are about 12 lines from the bottom at the two dots, B'yerach shel yamin u'v'yerach shel smol. That was an inclusionary line of our Mishnah, that the Tanakama was of the opinion that the Isser D'Oraisa of the Gid Hanoshe applies both to the sciatic nerve of the right back leg and as well to the left back leg. Now, it's an odd havamina that would only apply to one leg, but as we'll see momentarily, that is the sheet of Rabbi Yehuda. And it's hard to fathom in a way. Like if you say the sciatic nerve is not kosher, who cares if it's right or left? But Rabbi Yehuda does hold that opinion. So let's get to that. Our Mishnah says that both are part of the Isser. Says the Gemara, Masnisan lo ke Rabbi Yehuda. Our Mishnah is not like the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda. Ditanya. We have a brisa that is located here. It's actually a Tosefta. It's also found in the Gemara in Psachim. What does the Gemara say? Where are we? The Gemara says, Tanya, Rabbi Yehuda Omer, Eino noeg ela be'achas. The Isser D'Oraisa of Gid Hanoshe only applies to one of the legs of Gid Hanoshe. The Adas Machras, an intellect would indicate Es Shel Yamin. Now, Ibayaluhu, when Rabbi Yehuda says it's the right leg, what does that mean? Ibayaluhu, do we say Mifshat Pshita Leila Rabbi Yehuda? Is it obvious, crystal clear, Pshita, that it's the right leg? And Umay Das, when he says that the Das Machras, what he means is Das Torah, that it's evident from the Torah. And we'll have to see how that's the case. We will get there. Do we say that according to Rabbi Yehuda, who holds that it's only one leg, that it's definitely the right leg? No question about it. O Dilma, or perhaps would it be that the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda about one leg being part of the Isser and only one leg being part of the Isser of Gid Hanoshe is Svuke Misafkale, Umay Das Nota. It seems to me that it should be one leg. It seems to be. So we're going to take a host of answers to try and answer this question. This will take us until the thicker part of the Gemara on Tzadi Aleph Amud Aleph. Let's jump into answer number one, Toshma. We know that when it comes to the dinim of Korban Pesach, that we know that anything that's left until the morning needs to be burned. The animal was shechted during the afternoon of Yud Dalet. It was eaten overnight on Pesach night. Al matzos umrorim yochluhu, like we know from the Haggadah, like we know from Chumash. And ha'atzamos v'hagidin v'hanosar, the bones and the sinews and the nosar, anything that's left over until the sun rises, yisrafu l'shisha asar, that needs to be burned on the 16th. Let's analyze this. When we pick apart this brisa that we just learned, that the bones, sinews, and nosar need to be burned on the 16th, hani gide mai avidatayu. What's the story with the gidin that are referenced in this Mishnah, in this brisa, where it indicates that the sinews need to be burned on the 16th? Igide basar lichlinu. If they are sinews that are really part of the flesh, so those are actually edible. They're soft, they're edible, and lechlinu, you should have eaten them already. And the isur, if in fact you left over edible ones, pashot hainu nosar, that you'd have to burn those. That's obvious. Ella says the Gemara, it must be that gidei tzavar, and ilah basar ninhu lishdinhu. If you want to say that it's the gidim of the neck, well, the gidim of the neck are inedible, right? We have this SCM, the sternal muscle here is very, very prominent. It's inedible. It's not something that gid on the neck is inedible. Ilah basar ninu, and if that's the case, lishdinu, you can pasha throw it out. How do we understand the Korban Pesach brisa of Hoatzamos ve'Hagidin v'Hanosar Yisrafu? We're only talking about the Gid Hanosha, the Aliba de Rabbi Yehuda, and this applies only to the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda, the Amar Eino Noeg Ela Be'achas, that it's only a prohibition of Gid Hanosha only by one of the two Gidim. So says the Gemara. Shapir. I could understand if you say whatever you have left over, you have to burn. That I could understand. That's why if you say svuke misafkale, it's out of suffix that I burn everything. That makes sense. If in fact it was extremely and exceedingly obvious, so then the hetera lichle, the isur lishte, then you should have eaten the gid anashe before nosar happened, and then obviously you should throw out the gid anashe that's usher, the right versus the left. So the Gemara wants to say that perhaps we see from here that it must be svuke misafkale, because that's the only way that the brisa of ha'atzamos ve'agidin v'anosar yisfer l'shishasar makes any sense. So says the Gemara, no. 2 lines from the bottom on Tzadi on the base. Amar of Ika bar Chanina le'olamei malach mefsha pshitalach. Really, it's obvious to him that it's only that Rabbi Yehuda holds that the Isser of Gid Anasha applies only to the back right leg and not to both. What were we dealing with in this brisa where it says that the bones, sinews, and nosar need to be burned on the 16th? Kshehukru, when I knew which leg was right and which leg was left. Ulevisof nisarvu, and then they got mixed up. Now, obviously, the feet aren't connected because there's a difference in the right leg and the left leg. It means that the gid anasha was stripped out, and I'm looking at 2 gidei nasha. I don't know, even if you're a baki b'davar, it looks like a nerve. Nerves are tiny little thin strands, hard to tell. So the Gemara says that that's what was going on over there, why you had to burn everything, because the 2 of them got mixed up. Fine. And Rav Ashi Amar, I have a different answer for you altogether. That really it's going to be mifshat pshitale. That's what Rashi says over here. And lo nitzrucha elo l'shamno. When the Brisa says that you have to burn the atzamos and the gidin, what did it mean by that? The shemen of the gidin. The Tanya, we have a Brisa. Shamno mutter, that the shemen, the fats that are there, that's mutter. V'Yisrael kadoshim, no agubo iser. And the Jews were makbid on themselves and brought about an iser. They were makbid on themselves not to eat the shuma, not to eat the shemen that was connected to the gid. Ravina gives a third response. We're on the top of Tzadi Aleph, Amud Aleph. Ravina Amar, lo nitzrucha ela lichad Rabbi Yehuda Amar Shmuel. What did he say? The Amar Rabbi Yehuda Amar Shmuel, shnei gidin hein. When we talk about the area of the sciatic nerve that runs from the hip and down, approximately, Pnimi samuch le'etzem aser. The Isser Deorais of Gid Anashe is the innermost sciatic nerve. That's what really we're talking about. And that's the one, V'chayav and alav, that halacha obligates us to not eat. And if you ate it, you'd be chayiv malkos. However, chitzon, the outer nerve that's near the sciatic nerve, it's not as close to the femur. It's further out in the flesh than the inner sciatic nerve. The chitzon samach labasar aser but ve'ein chayav alav. So there's different nerves. We know this scientifically that the nerves branch. So basically, I'm approximating, but a nerve will come down the hip area and split. The innermost one that's closer to the femur, if you eat that, you're chayiv. The outer one is still aser, but you're not chayiv malkos on. That's the split that the Gemara makes in the name of Reb Yehuda Amar Shmuel. So anyways, all of this answer number 1 that we tried to give, this Tashma about the Brisa of Atzamos, Gidin, and Nosar, we can't bring a proof from there about whether or not Reb Yehuda knows for sure that it's only the right leg or if he's besafik. So let's try again. Tashma, we have a Brisa, one that we've seen earlier in this Masechta. Says the Gemara, Ochal mizeh kezayis umizeh kezayis sofeg shmonim. If I eat some of this and some of that, 2 different gidei anoshe, the halacha is 80. Look at the din of Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, eino sofeg ela arbaim. If I ate the sciatic nerve of the right leg and the sciatic nerve of the left leg, what should Rabbi Yehuda hold? Well, if he holds that it's only one leg, it should be 40. Should be 1 set of malchus. Look what it says. Rabbi Yehuda Omer eno sofeg ela arbaim. So now look at this at the rationale provided by the Gemara. We're 10 lines down on Tzadi Aleph Amud Aleph. Iyamris bishlama mifshat pshita le shapir. If you want to say that it's pashut, I ate the right leg and I ate the left leg. Well, only one of those was aser, so therefore I only did 1 iser, and therefore it's going to only be 40. That the shapir givaldik. That now I have a proof that mifshat pshita le. That's great. But if you want to say that really Rabbi Yehuda isn't sure about this 1 leg deal, then hav yalei hasra safek, and you should be chayiv 0 malkos. The only time you're chayiv malkos is if you have a hasra. But a hasra suffix, because you're not sure if it's right leg or left leg, that will never yield malkos. Because v'sham'in leil Rabbi Yehuda da'amar asra suffix lo shma asra. How do we know that Rabbi Yehuda holds that asra suffix is not considered to be a hasra? The Tanya, we learned the case of a woman who was married to man A, married to Ruvain, and they got divorced. Now, normally the halacha is that one should wait 3 months to marry another man. She broke that halacha, and then all of a sudden she gets married to man number 2 the next day. She has a baby at the 7-month mark, and we don't know who the father is. Is it Ruvain from the first marriage, or after the divorce, is it Shimon from the second? Now, as it relates to that, now we have paternity tests nowadays, but as it relates to the child, who's his father? He has no idea. Okay, well then what about the halachos of how to treat a father? What if I am mekalel my father and I'm not sure who my father is? So let's analyze this. The Tanya, the Brisa says, Hika es zeh v'chazer v'hika es zeh. First, the child hits Ruvain, and then separately he hits Shimon. Kilel es zeh v'chazer v'kilel es zeh. This child who doesn't know who his father is curses out Ruvain, and then separately curses out Shimon. Hika shnehem bevas achas, or he hits both of them at the same time, a double punch, right, left, both to the jaw, Reuven and Shimon at the same time. O shekilel shnehem bevas achas, he says, Reuven and Shimon, the klala applies to you, boom, same time. What does the Tanakama hold? Keyword, Tanakama, chayev. However, Rabbi Yehuda holds hasra suffix is lo shma hasra. Therefore, Rabbi Yehuda omer bevas achas you're chayiv, because I know that you hit someone who was your father. I just don't know which one. There, the hasra works. But bezeh achar zeh, if you hit them sequentially and not simultaneously, what does Rabbi Yehuda hold? You're chayiv nothing, zero, putter, because in any one ma'isa that you did, the hasra was a suffix. When I hit Ruvain, your father might be Shimon. When I hit Shimon, your father might be Ruvain. When I hit them together, he agrees. Don't hit these two people because one of them is your father. Punch them both at the same time. Chayiv misa, right? But if they're sequential and not simultaneous, so then according to Rabbi Yehuda, you're good to go. Rabbi Yehuda is of the opinion that hasra suffix is lo shma hasra, and therefore you're chayiv absolutely nothing. So that's the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda. Says the Gemara, if that's true, then how is it possible that Rabbi Yehuda in our case says sofeg is harbaim? Look back at where we started 10 lines down. We said that if I eat a kazayis from here and a kazayis from there, the Tanakama says 80, Rabbi Yehuda says 40. Oh, wait. Why would Rabbi Yehuda say 40? He should have said 0. Why should he have said 0? Because I took a bite from here, and I took a bite from here. But hasra suffix is lo shma hasra. So it says the Gemara, Hi Tana. It must be that the shita that we saw in the Brisa 10 lines down at the Tashma, he is savar la ke'idach Tana de Rabbi Yehuda. There is another Rabbi Yehuda out there who holds differently. This other Rabbi Yehuda holds that the Amar Hasra Safek is Shema Hasra. It's either two approaches within the same Rabbi Yehuda, or there are different Tanaim named Rabbi Yehuda. One of the two. Titania, where do we see that there is a shita of a Rabbi Yehuda that Hasra'as Safek is Shema Hasra? Says the Gemara 1/3 of the way down. Lo sosiru mimenu ad boker by Korban Pesach. That you should not leave it over, and we need to see the rest of the pasuk inside. V'hanosar mimenu ad boker bo'esh tisrofu. Look at the structure of the pasuk. Don't do nosar, isser daraisa. But if you do, you should burn it, mitzvah saseh. So what's that called in Hebrew? Alav hanitak le'aseh. So the Gemara says, lo sosim mimenu ad boker ba'akasuv litein aseh achar lo sa'aseh lo marsh ein loken alav divi Rabbi Yehuda. You have to hold cup for a second. Rabbi Yehuda points out that when it comes to nosar, the halacha is that you're putter, because at the end of the day, it's a lav hanitak le'aseh. I can correct it. So if at night the Torah tells me, don't leave over, you tell me at 8 p.m., I have 7 hours until sunrise, 10 hours till sunrise. At 8 p.m., you say, Phil, don't leave over anything from your korban. That's a hasra suffix. Why? Because I have 8 hours. Who says I'm going to do anything wrong? Maybe I'll eat it by then. I'm not hungry right now. Maybe I'll be hungry at 3 a.m. Over here, however, we're not talking about hasra. What do we say? That the reason why you're pater from malkos is because it's a lav hanitak la'aseh, which implies that had it, if not for the lav hanitak la'aseh component, that you would have been chayiv. Therefore, we see that hasra safek is shma hasra according to this version of Rabbi Yehuda. And continues that brisa, Rabbi Yaakov Omer lo min Hashem, who said that's not the reason why you're pater, not because of lav hanitak la'aseh, but rather eli mishum dahava lav she'in bo maisa. V'chol lav she'in bo maisa ein lo kenalav. Why is it that nosar is a lav she'in bo maisa? Because how do you create nosar? By not eating. You're not doing anything. It's a passive sheva al tasa. I never finish my food. If I take korban pesach and I leave it on my plate, so what do I have to do to violate nosar? Literally nothing. I just have to fall asleep. So therefore, that's a lav she'ein bo ma'aseh. So Rabbi Yaakov disagrees with Rabbi Yehuda, but nevertheless, you are still pater. So what we see from here is that there are two tracks within Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda in our Mishnah is of the opinion that hasra safek is lo shma hasra. This extra Rabbi Yehuda that we have seems to hold that hasra safek is shma hasra. So either way, we still don't have a proof yet of whether or not Rabbi Yehuda's opinion that the Isser Deoraisa of Gid Anashe on only one leg is a din that's pashut, or if it's a din that's mesupak. So let's try another approach. 4 lines before the wide lines on Sadi Aleph Amud Beis. What? Look hard enough. Seek and you shall find. Well, there can't be a third shita because either Hasra Safek is Shema Hasra or not Shema Hasra. So, but I appreciate your tenacity, Avi. Says the Gemara, Tashma. Let's try another case scenario to pressure test whether or not Rabbi Yehuda holds that that he is either certain about this din of one leg is Nisr Gid Anashe, or he's not certain. Achal beis gidin mi beis yerechos mi beis behemos sofeg shmonin. Tanakama, not Rabbi Yehuda. Tanakama holds that if I have 2 legs that I know are usr from 2 different behemoths, so then I did 2 different isurim. What's the halacha? Sofeg shmonim. Let's see what Rabbi Yehuda holds. Rabbi Yehuda Omer eino sofeg ela arbaim. You only have to get a punishment of 1 set of malchos, which is 40. So it says the Gemara as follows: Midika Omer beis yerechos mi beis behemos pshita detar vayhula isura. Says the Gemara that we see over here, it must be that both legs are usher, because otherwise the Tanakama could never have gotten to 80, and it must be that that's the case. So it says the Gemara, must be the Rebbe Yehuda itzrich. Why? Shma mina mifshat pshitale. It's obvious he must hold that one was the right leg and one was the left leg. Tanakama held 80, but he doesn't hold that way. It must be mifshat pshitale, not a safek, that it is going to be usher. Says the Gemara, v'i pshitale amai sofeg mem v'sulo lil kipei. Says the Gemara, maybe it was 2 right legs. Why are you assuming that's the case? Says the Gemara, you're 100% right. That could be the case. Therefore, a second of the wide line, could go into less bekazais. It must be that one of the Gid Hanashes that he was looking at was less than a kazais. Both of them were right legs. You had Betsy the cow, and you had another Baruch the cow, whatever the case may be. And he ate the Gid Hanashe from each of them. Halacha is, according to Rabbi Yehuda, you're only sofig es harbaim. Both of them were right legs. So why were you not sofig shmonim? Says the Gemara, because one of them is lacking a kazayas. And look at this fascinating machlokas. We've seen it before. Tanya. Achlo, a person eats the Gid Anashe, the ein bo kazayas. We have a shiur for everything, literally everything. So you ate ein bo kazayas. What should the halacha be? Pater, right? Tanakam hold your chai. Why? The Rishonim explain, because it's like a beria. If I were to take an ant and put it in my mouth and eat an ant, that is an Isser Deoraisa 5 times over, the Gemara says. One of those Isurim is that I ate an ant. It's not a Kazayas. It's nowhere near a Kazayas. 1,000 ants is probably not a Kazayas, right? I've never measured. The halacha is that if you eat something that has a distinct identity, such as an ant or a fly or a spider, you eat a whole entity, the halacha is that you ate a beria and you're chayiv even though it's less than a kazayas. So the Tanakama over here holds that achlo ve'ein bo kazayas, you're still chayiv. Rabbi Yehuda says, no, this is not a beria. This is not a unique, distinct entity. It's like any other isser. It's like eating chazer. It's like eating on Yom Kippur. You don't eat the shiur. Well, we have this on Yom Kippur. You eat b'shiurim. Somebody called me with a shaila. I passed it on to Ray Robinson. This woman in the community called. She said, I have this medical issue, that. I take this medicine, the other thing, whatever. She said, I basically need to eat. Can you walk me through how to do that? So I said, yes, but I am not a posek. Let me call Rabbi Robinson. I called Rabbi Robinson. I said, should she eat b'shiurim? He said, there are no eating b'shiurim on Tisha B'Av. That doesn't happen. That's only on Yom Kippur. Why on Yom Kippur do we have shiurim? Because there's an Isser D'Oraisa to contend with. So there, if you eat under the threshold of the Isser D'Oraisa, it's only an Isser D'Rabbanan. And if you have a major medical issue, whatever the case may be, Givaldik, you stayed under that Rubicon of the Isser D'Oraisa. Great. So according to Rabbi Yehuda, this is a regular Isser and there's a shiur. Therefore, Rabbi Yehuda Omer, Ache bo kazayas. That's why he held in this brisa, where two right legs with Gid Hanosha. Why did he say that you're only sofeg as harbin? Because there's a nukimta. One leg was the classic Isser, the other leg was Ein bo kazayas. Good. Now the Gemara is going to discuss the following question. The time amai. How do we know that according to Rabbi Yehuda, we're talking about the right leg? And we're going to be learning a lot of Agadata for the next little while. Story time, things that we are used to, things we are familiar with, much less complicated than a lot of the nuances we've been learning. Omar Rava, Omar Kra, Ha Yerech. The word Hey, the letter Hey I should say, is the Yerech. Ha-meyumenes shebiyerech, the choicest of the thighs. And we always have a preference for the right in halacha, in almost every case. Ay v'rabbanan. The Rabbanan hold that both legs are going to be chayiv and gid hanosha. So what do they do about the hey, that strong letter hey of ha-meyumenes? Says the Gemara, the Rabbanan look at the word hayerach, that letter hey, to teach us that only the inner sciatic nerve is going to be the problematic one, not the outer sciatic nerve. Rabbi Yoshua ben Levi, Omar, what does he say? Get a different answer. Omar kra behe'av ko imo, that the malach of Esav, Sarah shel Esav, fought with Yaakov. Look at this drasha. Ki adam hachovek es chavero, v'yado magas l'kaf yamino shel chavero. Let's say that you and I are facing each other, and I give you a hug. Look, let's say if I'm standing opposite you, right? My right hand is opposite your left side. If I hug you, where's my hand? Right or left? Right. So when Sarah Shel Esav was facing Yaakov, when he wrapped his arm around him, he was on his right side. That's what Rabbi Shub ben Levi says, that Rabbi Yehuda holds that it's only the right side. Yaakov dislocated his right sciatic nerve, his right leg. We say dislocated. He damaged his right leg. That's what the Gemara says about Rabbi Yoshua ben Levi. Fascinating approach. Unbelievable. And this has dine deoraisa implications according to Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Shmuel bar Nachmani Omar, Ke'oved kochavim nidmelo. The Sarah Shel Esav appeared like an akum, like someone who, not just samagoy, but someone who wanted to kill a Jew. So what's the halacha when you walk with someone who doesn't like you? Well, we assume that most people are righties, and therefore your right hand has to be available to defend you. Therefore, how do you orient yourself next to your enemy? You stand to his left, so your right arm is available. Oh, now look at the Gemara. De Amar Mar, Yisrael shenitfa lo oved kochavim baderech. If there's a Jew who is secondary to an oved kochavim, toflo liyamino. Put the goy on your right, so that your right hand is available. But if the goy were to hit you, which side is he facing? Your right side. So different ways to approach this. A third approach, Rav Shmuel bar Acha, Kame de Rav Papa, Mishmei de Rav bar Ula Amar, Ketalmud Chacham nidmelo. No, the Sarah Shel Esav showed up like a Talmud Chacham. And when I'm walking with the Talmud Chacham, how do I stand? To Amar Mar, Hamahalech liyamin Rabo harei zabur. You should never walk to the right of your Rebbe. We always do everything to the right. So what's more chashuv? The Rebbe. So the Rebbe should be to my right, I should be to my left. Fine. V'Rabbanan, Now, according to the rabbis, wait, there's all these Mar Mekomos to indicate there was only one side. You got the Pasuk of Beheav Koimo, the Chovko, Rabbi Shuban Levi. You got the second answer that he's walking with a goy. Obviously, the goy is standing to the right of me, and I'm walking with my Rebbe also to the right of me. So how can you, the Rabbanan, hold that it's only that it's going to be both Gidei Nashe, not one? So it says the Gemara, because that's not how Sarah Shal Esav attacked Yaakov. Says the Gemara, V'Rabbanan me'achore asa. The Sarah Shal Esav attacked from behind. So he had access to both legs. The Nashye betarvaihu. He dislodged both of his legs in one shot. Machlokas and Metzias of how the Sarah Shal Esav approached Yaakov. The Rabbanon, according to the rabbis, now we at least understand both shitas, right? Now we understand the Rabbi Yehuda world that he was damaged on the right leg. We understand the Rabbanon world that he was damaged in both legs, no problem. But what did the Rabbanon do with the pasuk of Rabbi Yoshua ben Levi? The Rabbanon hai behe of ko imo my darshibe. What do they do with the pasuk of behe of ko imo? Remember that the way that we looked at that of behe of ko imo was talking about a hug. That if I'm mechabek you and you're facing me, my right arm starts at your left, but when I go around you, I'm on the right. What do the Rabbanan do with that pasuk? Obviously, they don't learn it the same way Rabbi Yehuda does. That's pasha. So it says the Gemara of Rabbanan, "Hai behav koim on my darshibe." Says the Gemara, we need it for another halacha that Rabbi Shua ben Levi taught. The Amar Rabbi Shua ben Levi, melamed shehelu avak margilosam ad kisei hakavod. The dust of the machlokes of Sarah Shel Esav and Yaakov Avinu went all the way up to the Kisei HaKavod. I have no idea what that means, but let's assume that it's something very significant in the annals of history. How do we know this to be true? We know that there was dust with them. There was a cloud of the dust of his legs. Fine. Next, 10 lines from the bottom, give or take, Sadi Aleph Amid Aleph. Gid Hanoshe. Why is it called the Gid Hanoshe? What does the word Gid mean? Says the Gemara. What does the word Nashe mean? Gid we know is a sinew. Why is the Gid Hanoshe? Sorry, I misfocused there. What does the word Nashe mean? Shenasha mi mekomo ve'ala. It is the kind of thing that exits from its place and goes away from it. A dislocation, something along those lines. Omer. The Gemara says, let's find this pasuk inside and read it correctly. The pasuk says in Yirmiyah, Noshesang vurasam, your strength has left you. Hayu lenashim, you are more comparable to a woman who's less strong in general than a man. So Noshesa means it left you or jumped away from you. What does this pasuk mean? A pasuk from Yeshaya Periktes says the Gemara. Davar shalach b'Yaakov is a Gid Hanoshe. Something that happened to Yaakov that was talking about the Gid Hanoshe. The Nafal b'Yisrael shepashat Yisur b'chol Yisrael, that all of the Yidden are makbid on Gid Hanoshe. You need to prepare your korban. Says the Gemara, tvoach tevach, that is para lohen beis hashchita. You need to expose the beis hashchita. You don't just cut. You move the fur away. For birds, you move the feathers away. Make a clean cut starting at the skin. Don't cut through hair. You'll make your knife a little bit messed up. You don't want to do that. The hair on these animals can be very, very coarse. You don't want to do that. And certainly the knives of old were very fragile. So paralem beis hashchita is opening up the skin, opening up the hair so that we have direct access to the skin to do the shchita. V'hachein. What does the word v'hachein mean? And prepare it. Says the Gemara that if you do in fact want to eat the back leg of the animal, right leg according to Rabbi Yehuda, both legs according to the Rabbanon, tol gid hanoshe bifnehem. Remove the sciatic nerve, and then you can eat it. As mentioned, the Shulchan Aruch has a siman on this called Nikur Hagid ve'Hachelev, the removal of the gid and the fats that surround it. At which point, the remainder of that back right leg, according to Rabbi Yehuda, or both legs according to the Rabbanon, become mutter to eat. Kiman de Omar, this actually tracks like something we learned last night. This follows the opinion of Gid Hanoshe Ne'esar Livnei Noach. This certainly applies to that case because we are talking about the times of Yaakov Avinu. and they were Bnei Noach, but not Yidden in the formal way that we look at them. Of course, we know that there are Diyunim in the Rishonim and from the Gemara. Did Yaakov Avinu keep halacha? We know that Goysha Shavas is Chai Misa, Goysha Lamat Torah. So we had to navigate these halachas. We're not going to talk about this sugya now, but it is a fascinating sugya. But we know, therefore, that if Gid HaNashe became an across-the-boards type of Isser that people kept even in the times of Yaakov Avinu, that must mean that it's a din in Bnei Noach, not just a din in Yidden from Matan Torah and onward. Let's get into the story about Sarah Shel Esav and Yaakov Avinu. 4 lines from the bottom. Vayivaser Yaakov levado, Amar Reb Elazar shenishtayer al pachim ktanim. The only reason he stayed out that late at night was because he had left over some pachim ktanim. Seriously, what does that even mean? So says the Gemara, Mikan letzadikim, shechaviv alehem mamonam, yoser migufam. A very difficult line to understand. The righteous appreciate their money more than their body. V'kol kach lama. Why is it that they feel that way? So says the Gemara, because the fisha ain't poshten yadein begeza. They're very, very yashar people. So when they buy something, that's a real kinyan. It's mine. I bought it with my own hard-earned money. It's mine. And there's a certain chavivus of the things that you buy, even more than your guf. This requires research, requires rishonim, requires achronim. Fascinating piece. What? And what we buy, we appreciate. Unless you buy too much, then you appreciate nothing. Yeah, tafasta below tafasta, that's for sure. Yeah, absolutely, could be. But these Gemaras require research. All these Gemaras require research. But these things on their face don't even make sense. Okay, next. Vayavek ishimo adalos hashachar. Yes. Well, it makes the Mikan difficult to understand in our Gemara. It makes the jump of the Gemara to say that Chaviv Alei Mamon and Yoser Migufam. Okay, so says the Gemara, the pasuk says, "Vayavek ish imo adalos hashachar," that a man battled with him, grappled with him until morning. Amar Rav Yitzchak, that's because Yaakov shouldn't have been out so late at night. Curfew. Mikan l'talmid chacham shelo yetze yechidi balayla. Rashi, bottom line, Mikan l'talmid chacham sharei Yaakov nishar yechidi v'huza. You know, my car penalizes me for driving between 11 p.m. and 4 a.m. That's how my insurance works on my car. They grade you. And if you drive between 11 p.m. and 4 a.m., they ding you. Go to bed. It's late. Fascinating. So over here, the Gemara says that we see from here that a Talmid Chacham should not be out and about at night. It's not right. Rav Abba Bar Kahana Amar Mehalcha, turning to the top of Tzadi Aleph, Amud Aleph, no, Amud Beis, excuse me. We are going to be so far behind. I'm going to pick up the pace a little bit. This was talking about Naomi talking to Ruth, saying that Boaz was out and he was going to be at the Goren and he was going to stay there all night. He wasn't going to walk home because you're not allowed to be out at night. That's what Rashi says on the second line of the page. Rabbi Bo Amar Mehacha, Vayashkem Abraham, Baboker. Guess what? He didn't get up. What about the Zrizos? What about Zrizos? Wake up at 3 a.m.? No, when the sun rose. Why? Because that's not the right time for a Talmid Chacham to be up at 3 a.m. That's not right. I mean, to be awake and learning, no problem, but you shouldn't be walking around the streets. So he did that because you should not be out at night. Another answer, this was when Yaakov Avinu sent Yosef to go check on his brothers, the beginning of its own story. So there the Gemara says, I need you to be able to see. They didn't have street lamps. You got to wait till sunlight. Then you can go check on your brothers. Rav Amar Mehacha, Vayizrach lo Hashemesh, that the sun has risen. Amar Rabbi Akiva, Sha'alti es Rabban Gamliel ves Rabbi Yeshua Itlis shel Imum. In the shuk of a city of Imum, Rabbi Akiva asked his Rabbeim a question. Shehalchu likach behen lemishte beno shel Rabban Gamliel. They had gone to purchase an animal for the simcha of the son of Rabban Gamliel. See if the pasuk says Vayizrach lo Hashemesh, that the sun shone for Yaakov. I don't understand. The sun only shined for Yaakov. Everybody, the whole Ganze Welt, everybody benefits from the sun. So it says the Gemara, there was a miracle, just not quite right there. Where was the miracle? Amar Reb Yitzchak, Shemesh haba ba'avuro, zarcha ba'avuro. the shemesh that came because of him shined because of him. What does this mean? Dichsiv. The pasuk teaches us 12 lines down. Sadi Aleph from the Beis Vayetzi Yaakov mi Be'er Sheva Ba'elech Harana. That Yaakov left from Be'er Sheva and went to Haran. Uchsiv Vayifka B'makom. And then it says that he approached that place, which we know is to David. Kimata l'Charan. When he got to Haran, Amar Oi. Efshar shavarti al makom shispalalu avosai v'ani lo ispalalti. How could it be that I made this omission? I walked by a place, Har HaMoriah. I walked by this place soon where the Beis HaMikdash and Emir Hashem will be built, and I didn't daven there. So Kadyayiv died to the Mahadar when he said, I need to backtrack and go to Har HaMoriah and daven. Kafza la ara. That's what we call kvitza saderech. Every one step was 10 steps. He got there so fast. Miyad vayifka b'makom. Then instantly he got there and he davened. And Kadsali, when he got there and he davened, he wanted to go back. But Amar HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Hashem says, I can't let Yaakov leave Har HaMoriah. Tzadik zeh ba lebeis maloni v'yipater below lina. This tzaddik came to visit me, and I'm going to send him on his way below lina. Miyad ba hashemesh. Right away, says the Gemara, that he made the sun set. What do we see from here? Talmid Chacham can't leave at night. Ironically, who are we talking about? Yaakov. The same person. Okay, fine. Says the Gemara, this is one of the most well-known Gemaras in Shas, and Yaakov took from the stones of the place. Later it changes it from plural to singular, and he took the stone. So it says the Gemara, all of them became unified as one. They all wanted to play a role in supporting the tzaddik, and they all unified as one. Tana, the Brisa says, "V'chula nivla'u be'achas." They all blended in. There was a blia. They all became absorbed into one another. They all became one. The pasuk says, "Vayachalom v'hine sulam musavar." So Yaakov goes to sleep on those rocks that became a rock, and he had a dream about the ladder. Kama rachbo shel sulam. How wide was the ladder? Shmonas alafim parsos. 8,000 parsas wide. This is, obviously, it was a dream, but it's a wild, wild width, and we'll see why. Dichsi, because we know. It says olim by Yordim, and olim by olim by Yordim. Olim plural, Yordim plural. So that means that at any one point, if the ones going up where it was in a pair, and the ones going down were in a pair, at some point you had 4 people standing right next to each other against the width of the ladder. And how big was any one malach? Says the Gemara, it was like the size of Tarshish, like the size of a sea. Ugmiri de Tarshish trei alfe parse havu. Tarshish was 2,000. 2,000 parsos times 4 malachim against the width equals 8,000. What were they doing when they went up the ladder? Tana olenu mistaklin b'dyukno shalmala. They went up to look at the kisei hakavod, and what they wanted to do is see the picture of Yaakov that had been emblazoned and etched into the kisei hakavod up in Shamayim. Again, kaviyachol, we don't know what these things mean. And the yardinu mistaklin b'dyukno shalmata. Then they went down. They're like, oh, let me go see what he looks like while he's sleeping on the rocks. Says the Gemara, Ba'ole Sikune. The Malachim wanted to come down, they wanted to endanger him. Says the Gemara, Miyad v'nei Hashem nitzav alav. HaKadosh Baruch Hu stood over Yaakov to protect him. Amr Shimon ben Lakish, Ilmal Mikra Kasev. If the Torah didn't tell me this, Yefshar lo Omro, Ka'adam Shemeni Falvano. That what HaKadosh Baruch Hu is standing there protecting Yaakov like a father would protect his child. No, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is the Eibush. There's a billion, at that time there weren't a billion people in the world, whatever there was. This is not, without hearing the Torah talk about this, it's impossible to assume that that's the case. Then the pasuk says something very interesting. What an interesting zach. How big was Yaakov's body? What did the Torah tell us? That the square footage, the area that he was lying on was his. You know what? That's a very small property. So says the Gemara, my revuse, no. What's the big deal? You're giving me the area of my human body, the chalk line outline of my body, that's what you're giving me? My reviews say that's no big deal. Says the Gemara, no. Amar Rav Yitzchak melamed shek kafla kadosh baruch hu l'chol haaretz Eretz Yisrael v'nicha tachas Yaakov Avinu shetenocha likabesh lebanav. I'm going to read the words. I read them. I'm going to translate them. I have no idea what it means. Kadosh Baruch Hu took Eretz Yisrael. He folded it multiple times over until it fit under Yaakov. And it would be with the same simplicity that Yaakov laid down on that folded up Eretz Yisrael, the square footage of Eretz Yisrael was under him, that would work. Says the Gemara, Vayomer Shalcheni ki Allah hashachar. The angel says to Yaakov, please let me go. Amar lo, ganavata, oh, kubiustus ata shemisyar min hashachar. Are you a thief that you're scared of the morning? Are you a kidnapper? That's what kubiustus means. Are you a kidnapper? Rashi says, gonev nafashos, that you're so scared of the morning? Amar lo, what does Sarah Shal Esav tell Yaakov? He finally peels back the mask. He says, malachani. God, I'm not human. I'm an angel. And umiyom shenivresi, from the day that I was born, lo higia zmani lomar shira ad achshav. Today's my day to go give shira to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Mesayeh alei Rav Chanan Amar Rav, because the Amar Rav Chanan Amar Rav, what does he say? Shalosh kitos shel malachi ashar somer shir b'chol yom. There are three groups of malachim that give shira to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Achas someres kadosh, ve'achas someres kadosh, ve'achas someres kadosh Hashem tzavakos, which we say in kedusha every day. That by the angels, the first group said the word kadosh, the second group said the second word kadosh, the third group said the third word kadosh, followed by Shem Hashem. Meisvei, the Gemara says that makes no sense. He says that the Jews are on a higher level than the angels. I can say that pasuk whenever I want. I can say any pasuk whenever I want. They can only say it once a day. And v'amri, some say that an angel can only say v'amri la pamachas b'Shabbos once a week. V'amri la pamachas b'chodesh once a month. V'amri la pamachas b'shana once a year. V'amri la pamachas b'shavua once a shmita. V'amri la pamachas b'yovel once a yovel. V'amri la pamachas b'olam only one time in their entire life. So says the Gemara, Yisrael maskirin es Hashem achar shtei tevos, shenemar Shema Yisrael, two words before the word Hashem. V'gomer, Masha enkein malachi ashar is ein maskirin es Hashem ela la'achar gimel tevos k'dechsiv kadosh 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 Hashem tzvakos. So that doesn't make sense because the ein malachi ashar is omrim shir l'ma'ala shemru Yisrael l'mata shenemar b'ron yachad kochvei bakar v'hadar v'yariu kol b'nei elokim. Only after the Jews say praise, then the angels can catch up. Now, what's the problem with this? The third group of malachim, what did they say? They said the third word, kadosh, followed by Hashem. That third group did not say three words before Shem Hashem. They only said one, which is against the rules. So therefore, the Gemara pivots, and we'll have to stop here. Achas omer is kadosh, ve'achas omer is kadosh kadosh, ve'achas omer is kadosh 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 Hashem tzvakos. The first group said the word kadosh once. The second group said the word kadosh twice. The third group said kadosh kadosh kadosh, and then Hashem tzvakos, and that is absolutely the right way that the angels did it. Va'ika Baruch. What about Baruch Kavod Hashem Imikama? Baruch Kavod followed by Hashem. The angels say that. That's the next part of Kedusha. How can they do that? Says the Gemara, because Baruch, top of Tzadi Bezim and Aleph, Ofanim Hu Da'amrila. The Ofanim, a different type of angel, hard for us to appreciate. Different type of angel, they were on a higher level. Once they had Rishus to say Kadosh, Kadosh, Kadosh Hashem, then Isyahiv, another layer of Rishus to say Baruch Kavod Hashem Imikama. All right, we'll stop right here at the top of Tzadi Bezim and Aleph. I know we're a blot behind. We'll get as much done on Shabbos as we can. Wishing you all a beautiful night.